Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have another great guest on now. A few months ago, I was on his show, and I really enjoyed the conversation that we had and loved the way he thought about serving his clients and his business. So I wanted to invite him to the Business Talk Library to give some tips that I think he's going to give some phenomenal things when you hear his story and what he does. So welcome to the show, Raul Hernandez.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, before we jump into your business and we talk about, your awesome book that you had come out, can you tell us a little bit about, your background and what you were doing before you started your current business?
Oh man, it's a good story. That starts maybe 10 years ago. So it's 2020 in this recording. So maybe 2010, 2011 would be a good start. So I actually was looking to go into design, art school, animation, because I was always a creative, always drawing, noodling, creating different ideas and, animations in my mind and, practicing on the computer back in the day when we still used floppy disks. So yeah, we use floppy disks. Um, but fast forwarding to college, I learned that businesses can create impact around solving human issues. And I was exposed by a company just, I say down the street, really, it's down the highway. But here in San Diego, just down the street, a couple college students creating a company called Solo Eye, where they gave back profits to fund cataract surgeries. And I was impressed by the fact that creativity can realm all the way into the business side. And I never was exposed to that if I didn't see the website on San Diego State's website, or that landing page. So I saw business as an ultimate form of creativity. I know that can be cliche, but I do see that you can create a product or service in any industry with any solution that you'd like that actually adds value to the end user, including your market, and creates a profit for all. So I wanted to dabble into that, and I got involved in so this is early college. So I got involved with the entrepreneurship program where they only take like 10 kids out of the entire business school of San Diego State. And San Diego State's it has a really good reputation for business. So it's cool to be honored to be part of that program, such a small group where we learned from veteran entrepreneurs and like real veteran entrepreneurs, and like having stories to be able to say that I've learned how to paddleboard, legit learned how to paddleboard with the co-founder of Volcom, and
Wow.
was in the same room with Ralph Rubio, had opportunities to go see, Jeff Siegel from Costco, hung out with the founder of Taylor Guitars. Just a lot of cool exposure at a young age to see how entrepreneurship is a path. And it was an incredible program. It's probably literally like it was only one unit, one credit, right, for college. And if you went to school, like for our listeners that go to school, like one unit's nothing. But
Yeah.
this was legitimately worth 5 times what I paid for college, just that one unit for the 2 years. So
Okay.
that exposure to leading to creating companies on the fly. So we had to create companies for a day, create companies just every single semester. I've tried nonprofits. I've been in incubators. I've had failed ventures. I've had not so failed ventures. Some that did okay for a day. But then from there, I was working with JP Morgan Chase Bank, um, working my way through school. So I was working, going to school, starting ventures. So I was pretty busy at a young age, and it was fun, and it was really good. But I knew that I always wanted to create something. So even as I was working in banking, I'd wake up in Eastern time and start hustling and doing work at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. until my Pacific time. You had to go to work at like banker hours, which is nice. But then from there, join online communities where I was able to, it was an online program actually to start a SaaS company, so a software as a service. From there specifically, we didn't create software, but we discovered how to create marketing services with a co-founder that I've never met in Brooklyn. And we've met since then, but we didn't meet at the time. But it was a great guy. He's like a brother and an incredible guy. And we created a company. From there, we started working towards the path of entrepreneurship. And it got to the point where I was able to take the leap, as they say, from the corporate world at a young age, and then dive deep, get my ironing in regards to managing stress, managing clients, understanding the business model, understanding sales, being able to move businesses forward, and also understand what happens when you don't move businesses forward. And then from there, it exposed to different opportunities, and I've learned a ton in the marketing world. Where at the end of the day, we were building a digital marketing agency. We didn't really feel like that was our call. Like that wasn't something that we wanted to do. So we actually just we split ways in obviously we were still friends and everything, but we decided to put a pause on that. And then I went on to help out different marketing firms, digital marketing firms online, to growing and being able to get exposure, become part of leadership teams, work through acquisitions, or mergers, really. It was a merger that I helped out, and then I was able to kind of be like the second person to Jason Hornung's agency, and just really learned a ton in regards to Facebook advertising, digital marketing, the online space. And I got exposure to train, consult, mentor business owners on a very intimate level to help them grow. And then one of my mentors actually noticed that a skill set that I was picking up, and it was aside from marketing. Surprisingly, right? It was more about being able to view business from a holistic point of view and create pretty much a system, a machine out of a business instead of having a business run your life. And I didn't know that was valuable, but as I helped train, about 60 people, a group of 67 people, everyone found a ton of value with something that I didn't see was valuable. So then I went down to write a book around my experiences helping companies grow from a systems point of view, being a chief ops officer for a small company that we helped take from 7 employees to 22 in less than a year, which is a lot of work. But it's just a story, but it's particularly all the insights that I'm able to kind of condense into an action item book, where it's not just like you learn a story and that's great, but it's actually applicable to any single business and regarding any business owner that wants to continue to grow their profits but increase their impact.
Gotcha.
That's kind of where I got to where I'm at in a very condensed time frame, like here in this recording. But it's been a journey. It's been a journey of learning, understanding, and collaborating, meeting people from literally day one.
Gotcha. So something I want to go back to where you talked about, being part of the accelerators, the incubators, and yeah, you were still working at JP Morgan. So how do you feel like being in that entrepreneurial environment helped you or hurt you, or how did it impact, when you were working?
That's a really good question, because no one's ever asked me that, and I haven't reflected on it in a way, but I do know that there are competing mindsets. Like I was on a very upward projection, like in my career, in the corporate career. But if you focus a lot on the corporate side and then you kind of drink that Kool-Aid and you get excited about it, but then you focus on the opportunity for the entrepreneurship side and you're like, no, this is really where my dream's at. It's kind of interesting. And then no one's really asked me that question of the competing mindsets, but it's true. I think obviously you're not a product of your environment, but environment affects you significantly. So it's important, no matter where you're going and what path you're on, to have peers who've been there and done that and have the encouragement. So if you want to do well, if you're in the corporate ring and you want to continue to grow and do that, find those who've done that. Have the mentors outside and inside of that industry or that area to help you grow. If you're an entrepreneur working in corporate, hang out with entrepreneur like-minded people, but those who've actually done successful ventures, those who've actually gone the path to show you that it's possible and how it can apply to your current state.
And I always found that interesting, even for myself, like when, working full time to where I was still doing, CFO services on the side outside of work, but it's just the mindsets were two completely different things. So where it's just like the mindset you had to have to excel in your career and when you're working for, within a bigger organization is different from the mindset you have to have when you're running your own business. And I think it's at a certain point for myself, I started noticing like, hey, I'm going to have to make a decision because I'm growing in both. And I got to decide like, which one am I going to put more energy into and making that decision. So what was it like for you taking that step where you like, you got to that point where you were going to take that leap to say, hey, I'm going to put more energy into what I'm doing, the entrepreneurship route. Like how did you get comfortable with that decision? Because I know a lot of people get nervous about that.
Oh, there is no comfort. You jump into a freezing cold pool and you do it. Seriously. So strategically, so I was in the group of the entrepreneur, like that online program. And I had the opportunity to learn from others' experience. You can only learn things from 2 ways: others' experience or your own. Unless there's a third, and maybe I don't know that, but pretty much the practicality, you learn from others or you learn from your own experience. when you learn from others, so I was young, I'm still young, but I was in that group with people who were further along in their life's journey. They had families, had grown in family, they had kids, et cetera, et cetera. And I learned from those who took the leap early too soon, how 6 months later they were finding a job. Then I've learned from others who did it strategically while they were hustling and doing both. So you get to understand both perspectives. I focused a lot on, because I had to work during college. I had to pay, or I had to be able to pay my way through and be able to have the opportunities and scholarships and the gifts and the grants and, God's grace to be able to go through everything. But also I didn't have the luxury to just go to school and do nothing else. Right. So I came from that kind of background and environment where I had to, continue to pay bills and do the whole thing. So strategically wise, like I couldn't just leave and try something on my own for 6 months if I didn't want to, but I did thankfully save 6 months of expenses, everything for 6 months. And I've learned that from other entrepreneurs who did the same path. So it's not a new idea. It's just something from my network that I learned. And specifically, if you do that in a way that kind of gives you security for anything that can go wrong, I think having 6 months to a year of savings is essential at any point. But even as an entrepreneur, it's important to have that quote unquote cushion, not because you want to tap into it, but because you want to make sure that you move confidently. And that's one of the key skill sets, I believe, for the entrepreneurship, is to be confident. And it was a scary decision. I remember being, like praying before the decision and like, this is scary. I'm going to trust and I'm going to do it. And being able to go through that and, learn from that experience, learn from, being able to absorb the type of stress that it takes to actually run a company. Because there's a lot of moving pieces that you don't do when you're working for another company. But when you're an entrepreneur, if you're a startup, you're kind of doing everything. So at least in the beginning stages, if you don't have a team or if you have a small team, you're wearing multiple hats. But I think there is no comfort. I think comfort is a lie if you're actually trying to be comfortable. I think you just have to do hard things, and it doesn't have to be excruciating. You can do it strategically where you can ease into it. But there is that point where you're just going to have to give it your all. And that's what we did.
And that's very interesting because it reminds me of something that, a mentor of mine once said, and even now when I speak in different places, people ask, like I spoke to a group of college students and they were like, well, what do you say to someone that, that's scared and nervous about taking that next step? And one of those things that I learned from my mentors is, what, there's no rule that says you can't do it and still be scared. It's just like, there's no rule that says you have to wait until everything feels good and then you take the step. It's like, no, you just take the step and you just keep moving forward. And eventually, you figure out that what you were scared of, you figured out a solution for that. And that's not really that big of a problem anymore. Or it's just like you learn to grow to become bigger than the problem. So yeah, I completely agree with you in that.
No, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things too, that as I mature in entrepreneurship and even in age and life, is that the mindset that you go into things and the way that you perceive your problems, yourself, and the situation, the more confident you are. Not confidence in fluff and air, like actual confidence in doing the right things and also moving forward with confidence, does have a significant difference in how you approach a different venture. Like if you're on the fence to jump in and go all in, if you're in your mind, back of your mind, imagining, well, if I go in and it all fails, then it's going to suck, then you're really going to set yourself up for failure. Yeah. Not because you're manifesting something that's, going to be failure, but because you're finding ways, your brain is finding ways to see it fail, as opposed to using your brain to find ways how it can succeed. If you use your brain on the positive front, then you'll be looking for opportunities and ways to make it happen, as opposed to ways to make it not happen. So I think there's a deeper focus in how you can leverage or use your mind in the way that it's intended to be used for opportunity and growth. And even if you're scared, it's normal being afraid of something new, but just move towards it, and you'll find out that it's not as bad as you thought it to be. Because again, you're thinking that it's bad, but it's not that bad.
No, I agree. Now, where you are now, what are the types of services, and can you tell us a little bit about the book that you wrote as well?
Absolutely. So the book I wrote for access, to give anyone the access that they need and the information that they need to actually scale their impact. And I focus a lot about impact because businesses are focused on creating value to the marketplace, but you do more than just that. You give value to your employees, your team, your family, your community, but also creating impact in the services that you do and what you actually deliver. Is as simple as it sounds. If you're selling real estate, if you're selling, widgets, if you're selling information, there is an impact, and it's just the way that you look at your business that matters. So the book I wrote simply to give away my entire process, literally in 100 pages or less. I think it's 96 pages or 107. I forget. You get those extra fluff pages because you have to do it on Amazon. But anyways, I gave away the entire farm, and that's not something because I want to, just give it away and like people come to me to tell me how to do it. Obviously that happens. But the key thing is that with that book, you can actually apply it in your own business and you'll see results because these are the exact same frameworks that I've learned and also learned from others that work. The key thing is that it's proven. It's not fluff. It's not theory. It's battle tested and it works. Now, the thing is when it comes to the book though, it's one prong to working with me. And I know you mentioned services. A lot of the things that I do are more like growth consulting, growth scaling. We have a podcast that I'm doing as well, where I interview, awesome people like you, different founders, entrepreneurs. And what we're doing, and this is actually, at the time of this release, it should be out, but we're doing an insights community. So what I do is for every single podcast guest, there's an insight that they have, and being able to teach you that insight so that you can actually plug and play it into your business is essential, because as entrepreneurs, you're constantly learning, you're constantly investing in education, you're constantly talking to people in masterminds. But what are the nuggets that you actually need to just drive the business forward? It takes time to dissect those nuggets, condense them into action items, and then give them to your team. So I take that entire process so that you can actually apply it from proven leaders and industry experts, so that you can take action and apply the impact into your company. That's another service, or more like an information product that is at the time of this recording should be out, but it's stemming from the podcast. So I do that, growth consulting, and also sprints with clients who just want to be able to package their systems or their business into a system, either if they want to sell it one day or if they want to create a very profitable or very, not just profit driven, but impact driven lifestyle where their business doesn't run them, but they also enjoy going to work every single day and they're able to help customers at a high level.
Awesome. So where can people find the book?
Just on Amazon. If you just Google productive profits, it should be the first one that comes up.
Okay, awesome. And where can they find you online or on social media if they want to work with you for your services?
The best place is just to go to the website, dogoodwork.io. You have access to all the social medias and contacting me. So it should be easy there.
Okay. And that's that website, same place they can go for the podcast?
Yes, there's a podcast tab there as well.
Okay, perfect. Well, before we wrap up, one question that I like to ask every guest that comes on is when you think about, your journey and think about, the ups, the downs, the lessons that you've learned from yourself and other people and where you are today and where you're going, what's two pieces of advice that you would share with other entrepreneurs?
Two pieces of advice. This is a tough question, but I'll give you a really good one that could help you if you're starting or if you're growing, or even if you're have momentum. Wake up at 5 a.m. and work out. That's the first piece of advice. The second piece of advice is invest heavily in books, audiobooks, Kindles, whatever, but invest heavily in books. It's wisdom of others who are written down on page. And I can't tell you how many people don't read books, and you'll find most of your solutions from like literally all the books that I've been able to read and be able to get more value from books than even from some consultants. So.
Awesome. I think that is great advice. It's something that I remember even at, I guess, the latter part of my teenage years of constantly reading, the book of Proverbs or Ecclesiastes. And one of the things that really stood out to me was there's nothing new under the sun. And it's just like you said,
It's a different time. No, that's awesome.
A lot of those answers you need, as you said, they're probably in some book that someone has gone through that had documented what they did or documented their observations, and your answers somewhere out there, because literally there's no new problems. It may have a different circumstances, but the problem itself is not new.
Yeah, that is 100% true.
Awesome. Well, Raul, thank you so much for coming on the show. Enjoyed having you. We'll definitely include those links so people can find you online. They can find your book and they can find your podcast as well. So thanks for coming on the show.
Terrell, thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.